Okay, so this is going to show you how to set up your color mixing guide. And if you look at the first two boxes that I have here, I already got started to give you a little bit of an example before I go into the actual how-tos on doing this. But if you look at your chart, you'll have a list of colors going across the top, and then you'll have a list of colors going down the side here. What you're going to do is match up the top and the side color, and you're going to make the hue, tint, and tone of that color mixture in the box. So if you look here, the first one is red and red. So I don't have to actually mix red together twice. I can just use the red right out of the cup, and you'll have that happen for the three of your primary colors. So you'll see here red and red meet up here, yellow and yellow meet up here, blue and blue meet up here. So for those ones, you're not really adding anything extra to make the color. For everything else, you are. So for this one, we have red and red mixed together, and you'll see the hue, which is just the color itself. So that's the color made by mixing these together. And then you have your tint, which is your color plus white. You have your tone, which is your color plus gray. And you have your shade, which is your color plus black. Okay, so that's like the general idea of this. And you'll do that for each block throughout this mixing guide. So before you begin, you want to get it set up with these things. You need your guide, so you're either going to print this out from the slides, or if you don't have a printer, you can draw your own in your sketchbook. You just want to make sure it's set up in an order similar to this. You should have 72 spaces in total. In addition to that, I have 6 paint colors. So one of them is my gray for my tone, one is white for my tint, one is black for my shades, and then I have my 3 primary colors, which are my red, my blue, and my yellow. In addition to that, I have a cup of water to clean my brush. I have a mixing piece of paper, so if you're at home, you could use like a paper plate or an extra sheet of paper, whatever works for you. And then I have some paintbrushes to mix my colors together and to paint them onto my guide. So I'm going to show you the next one on the list as an example. So to begin, I'm going to look at my color on the top, and I'm going to look at my color on the side where they meet up. I'll see that I have red and blue. So if you think back to mixing your color wheel, you'll know that red and blue together make purple or violet. So when you mix these colors together, that's what you should see. So we're making these from the primary. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of my blue, do a little dab of that, and my red, do a little dab of that. And I want to have this be about 50-50. So if you look at my amount of color on there, it's about equal. So half blue, half red. Get me to a purple. There she is. Very beautiful. Okay, and that's my hue. So your hue is just the color on its own. So in my box that says hue, I'm going to grab some of my paint, and I'm going to put it right next to where it says hue. Now if you look at the rest of the box, I still have to make a tint, a tone, and a shade. So I want to make sure when I make that purple that I have enough to be able to do that. I don't want to have to remix my purple every single time. So I'm going to make sure I mix enough to paint the rest of those swatches. All right, so next in line is my tint. So I'm going to grab a little bit of the color that I made. I'll move it over here. I'm going to grab some of my white and drop it in. Mix it up, and this will create a lighter version of my hue. So these look very pastel-y. I'm going to put that in where it says tint. Alright, give my brush a little swipe in my water bucket, make sure it's clean so I don't cross-contaminate here. Alright. Next, I have my tone. So my tone is my hue plus gray. I'm going to grab some of my hue, grab some of my gray, And we're just painting little sections, so we don't need a ton for this. So just a couple scoops with your brush. Alright, and you'll see this really dulls down the color. So these ones tend to be a little bit more earthy. They're not as luminous. Alright, there's my tone. Clean my brush, and last but not least is my shade. So my shade is my hue or my color plus black. For this, a little bit really goes a long way. So with black, you don't want to totally engulf your color, so you only need a little bit for this. I would say definitely less than the gray and the white that you needed for the tint and the tone. So what I like to do is I take my black and I just first put it, on its own on my mixing plate. I'll use what's left over on my paintbrush and I'll start mixing that into my hue. So that's just my base color. And then I can grab a little bit more and mix that in. But really with this, a little bit goes a long way. You want it to look darker than your tone. So your tone is the one with the gray. But your shade should still have some of that color in it. So when I put it on my paper, I don't want it to look black. I want it to look like a really deep dark purple. So you should still be able to see some of the color coming through. But again, not lighter than your tone or the same as your tone. So if you look at this, you can see the progression. My hue is just my raw color. My tint is my color plus white, which is a lot lighter. My tone is my color plus gray, which really kind of neutralizes it and dulls it down. And then my shade is my color plus black, which makes a really dark, deep version of that color. So you would just continue this process all the way through the list. So I would look at what comes next. Next on my list is red and orange together. So I want to mix my red and my orange. I know when I get to my secondary colors here that I don't have orange in my set, so I'd have to make orange first. So to do that, again, if you need to refer to your color wheel, do so. But I want to make orange, so I know to do that. I need some red and some yellow, and I would start with that as my base. I make my orange first because I don't have that right off the bat. Right, and then I mix my red into it. So this is going to look like a red-orange, which is one of your tertiary colors. So this should pull more towards red than it does orange. All right, and it should look something like that there. So keep that in mind when you get down to your secondary colors here, that you'll actually have to make these before you mix it in. So if it's helpful for you, before you get started, to mix some of these together to make your secondary colors, that could be handy, so you're not mixing it every time you do this bottom half of the color guide there. But that's a personal preference. I would recommend it. I think it makes it a little easier to just have them ready to go. Okay, so good luck and have fun.